The Antidote.
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 The Antidote. The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
The Antidote.
You're listening to The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
With Christian music that doesn't suck.
Thanks for coming back to The Antidote. I've always been a fan of prog rock and prog metal, but it's been a long time since I've heard much of either style. So it was awesome to discover the music of Voice of Glass and their new EP, Epos. We heard a sample of that release on what was found during tonight's first song, The Phoenix. The band members and I had a huge talk about what they're creating and how their faith plays a big role in their music. During this first part of our conversation, you'll find out that prog wasn't always the music style of Voice of Glass, especially not on their first song release, Valley. The Antidote welcomes David and Olya Meek from Voice of Glass to the show. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
Your band has longevity. You guys started up in 2002, which really is amazing because so many bands close up after just a few years. So Voice of Glass must be a true passion of yours.
Yes, it is. It's our passion. And I think the reason Voice of Glass has been able to have this type of longevity is because of the relationship between Olya and I. I mean, we got close is because of our passion for music. We got married. And, we've had ups and downs in our marriage, just like the music, but we feel like our passion and our love for each other is also the same passion we put into our music. And that's why we're still doing it.
Well, something that surprised me about your band was that it all began in Bulgaria. So maybe you should give us the creation story.
Well, I was living in Bulgaria. I was working with an organization called Youth with a Mission. And I was invited to a summer camp, and I met this pastor there, and he invited me to her church in a small town in Bulgaria. And I met my wife, Olya, and her brother, Todor. They spoke English, so we became friends, and I started just jamming with her brother in the garage. He was actually a death metal vocalist of a local band. We just started out doing death metal vocals, and we were doing like heavier metal stuff, and we had her come and do some more melodic vocals, and that's kind of how Voice of Glass got started.
It started in the garage of my house, the house that me and my brother lived. So a lot of bands start in the garage.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it started.
What did your parents think about having a metal band practicing in the garage?
My mother, she introduced both me and my brother to rock music from like very young age. And she also was a huge fan of Queen and ABBA, even though they're not necessarily metal, but they're a huge musical influence on me and my brother as well. But she was always very supportive. Me and my brother used to be into like death metal and black metal and all these bands. Mm-hmm. And she would take us to the local metal shops and basically say, buy whatever you want. So we would end up buying all the print cassette, T-shirts with the band logos and stuff like that. So she was always very supportive of us. She didn't mind it. I mean, because honestly, it's better for us to listen to music than being involved with something bad, right?
You're dating yourself by saying cassettes.
Well, I do come from that era. That's why when we made the switch to CD, that was revolutionary. And now the CDs are obscure, and it just blows my mind because I remember when the CDs came around, me and my brother, we were so stoked about it because you didn't have to, when you're trying to find a song, you have to keep rewinding, or sometimes you go too far, then you have to go forwards. And it was always so hard to find the exact spot where the song starts. And with the CDs, it was just so revolutionary because you just press the number of the song and then you listen to it.
So you met David because of him coming over to play music with your brothers.
Actually, I met him in our local church because, as he mentioned earlier, the pastor of my very small Pentecostal church invited him over because David had a very interesting testimony to share. And that's how I met him. I met him in my church. And me and my brother, we were kind of like, we were the only young people in our church who spoke some form of English. And we also had a lot in common with David because we were into, we like listening to rock and metal.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you laid out your trap for him and you got him as your husband.
I guess so. I did not intend it that he fell in that trap.
The first time I heard her sing and we recorded, her voice was stuck in my head and it could never get out of my head since then. So she's been in my head since the first day.
Over 20 years.
Let's go to the very first song from Voice of Glass, and that was the single Valley. That's very different from what you're now recording. The sound of that song is much more raw.
Yes, and like we said, we started out with her brother doing the death metal vocals, and we all had a love for metal, so we were more focused on the death metal with melodic vocals, which is very European at the time. Was very big, and that was where we were going with when we recorded Valley. When we had the opportunity to record our first single, a lot of things changed right after then.
Obviously, Valley is kind of more considered like the early period, and it was heavily influenced by my brother because my brother and David were basically, doing the instrumental part, and David would write the lyrics, and I would contribute with vocal arrangements. But the influence itself was coming. A lot of the influence was coming from my brother because my brother, as David mentioned, was a vocalist of a death metal band in my town, and he was also a drummer as well. So I feel like he brought a lot of those influences to our band. And then, of course, later on when he left, we had to switch our style because I do not do death metal vocals, obviously, clearly you can see. For us, it was kind of like the birth of a new era.
As I mentioned at the start of the show, prog wasn't always a part of Voice of Glass. We heard the death metal vocals on Valley. Let's move on to more of the band's history and the biblical flavor found on Song of Songs. I looked up some information about that song and discovered that it was really quite a success in Bulgaria.
Yes, we had met a producer. He had heard our demos and he wanted to help us record that single. He hooked us up with the film crew from the national television in Bulgaria to do a video, and they did a really, professional video at that time. And we were that got on the Bulgarian version of MMTV. It was played regularly on there, and which opened up, us to be interviewed on that TV show. And so, at the time, with that first song opened up a lot of success for us early on.
And it was our producer, Tony Grapes is his name. He's the lead vocalist and the mastermind behind Millennium, which is a Christian progressive metal band from Bulgaria. He was kind of like our mentor. So he took over, he produced the song for us. We recorded in his studio, Millennium Studio. He also did the mastering, the engineering, and he was also the one with the connections to the TV, the different TV stations. And we landed a very big opportunity. We landed an interview for the longest running metal show in Bulgaria. It's the most classic, longest running show. It's called Fractura or Fracture, and it was on MM. That was a channel back then in the early 2000s that was kind of like the Bulgarian equivalent of MTV. So that was a great opportunity for us.
Well, we are talking right now of years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
Because Valley came out in 2006. And that was the same year that you released Song of Songs. You guys made it easy for yourself because you pulled the lyrics straight out of the Bible.
Yeah, those two songs particularly, they were influenced from the Bible. Valley was from the 23rd Psalm, and then for Song of Songs, we had to rethink our direction in our music because after Valley, her brother decided that he didn't want to continue with the band, and we didn't have the death metal vocals. And so we were trying to rethink what we were going to do with the music. And with her being the main vocalist, and we were just thinking about love songs, and we thought about ancient love story, and then that, looked at the book Song of Songs, and we saw lyrics, and they're like, hey, this could be cool song lyrics. Yeah, we stole it from there.
Well, part of those lyrics that you stole say, I look for the one my heart loves. There is no peace within the fire. Oh yeah, you got to tell me the truth. Isn't Song of Songs your love song to David?
I think so, because quite honestly, this was during the newlywed period. We did get married in 2005, so we're talking like a year later. So yeah, I would say that is definitely my love song to David, even though he wrote the lyrics. But actually, he did not write the lyrics. He kind of modified them from the Song of Songs. I did feel like they did fit the way I felt about our love at that time. And I still do.
After all, it is poetry. And who else do you read poetry except to your loved one?
Correct.
Yes, especially poetry like that. Our music has developed a lot over the years. Like, we never started out a prog band or anything like that, but we did, we started out more into metal. And I think the prog aspect of it has just developed as we've gotten older and maybe matured a little bit as people and as musicians. But we've always wanted to do things different. When we set out to create music, we always wanted to try to do something original, new, that we hadn't heard before. So doing odd time signatures or changes in the songs and stuff was something that was part of the process. It wasn't something that we were intending to necessarily set out to do, but we were just trying to do something unique and different with our music.
So David, we're going to put you on the back burner for a minute because I need to speak with the most important member of Voice of Glass. So, you have an amazing voice.
Thank you very
and that
much.
really comes out on the track from The End of You. You make it sound as if singing is effortless. But is this something that you actually have to work at?
Of course. I mean, it might look effortless, but there's a lot of technique and, practicing behind and all that. But when you have the classical training or the training of like vocal coaching, which I did go through, it does help you with the performance. It does help you navigating, the vocal lines and all that. In a way, it can be effortless, but it can also be very technical. And our songs, I gotta say, they might seem effortless at first, like that I sing effortlessly, but these are challenging songs to sing. And a lot of times when I build my melodies, I do build them over what David plays guitar-wise, which is very proggy. And there's a lot of different ups and downs. Like it can be challenging to navigate around all of that, but with the proper technique, I guess I can make it work,
Because your voice helps to shape the songs, which also shapes the message that people receive from it.
Yeah, I feel like that. Yeah. I feel like David provides the whole structure, the body, the bones, the muscles, but I'm kind of like this last layer that kind of puts it together.
You're adding the icing to the cake.
I think so, yes. Hey guys, this is Olia Meek.
And this is David Meek.
And you're listening to Voice of Glass
on The Antidote.
I had to pull in the Voice of Glass song, The End of You. It was a chance for Olia to show what she's capable of. Now, the saga of the band continues as we head into Shadow of a Dream. Earlier we were speaking about Voice of Glass originating in Bulgaria. When did you actually make the move to the States?
Well, we came on the couple tours in 2006 and 2007. And after that second tour, we never left. We ended up in Chicago. We were living there, and that's where we recorded the album. And we had signed with the record label there. We intended on promoting the album, touring, doing everything in the States with the album. But the label we had signed with went under while we were recording, so we had no help with promotion. And, we did the best we could to promote it on our own. Yeah, after that, the band, we went our separate ways for a little while.
But we actually made the switch from Bulgaria to United States because we did go on tour in United States in 2007 and also in 2008. And we were received very well on the different venues we played in. And we kind of felt like, okay, we want to go a little bit bigger. So we want our music to really reach a lot of people. And of course, United States is kind of like the mecca of music, right? The mecca of everything. So that's why we decided to relocate to the United States. And we decided to stay. We've been here ever since. And now we've been here in Las Vegas for the last 14 years.
You moved to the city of sin.
Yes, which also is called the city of second chances, by the way, which I prefer. I prefer that second name, but, because the gambling, right? A lot of people come in and they're like, okay, this is my second chance. I want to have a second chance. That's why they gamble. So that's why it's called the city of second chances because of that as well. And I feel like for us personally, that was the city of second chances. This is where we revived the band because we were in a hiatus for 10 years prior to that. And when we came to Las Vegas, we met musicians and people that just kind of like, they started a fire in us. And we were like, hey, you know what? Let's start playing Voice of Glass again. And that's how we came back to, recording and, music again, kind of revived the band.
Well, that's cool that you were comfortable with that switch, in locales. But something else that was a switch is the 2024 song, Shadow of a Dream. And yeah, it's still prog. It definitely has a stripped down kind of sound. Part of the lyrics go, "This dream I hold is now replete, as the ashes fade and sorrows recede." So you got to tell me, do you still have that dream?
Yes, definitely. I mean, The Shadow of a Dream, it was written around the time of when the Ukrainian war and it was going on, and there were themes in the song of like World War II and the idea of a future when there is no war, when there's peace in this world and there's a brand new day and maybe a new world. What Shadow of a Dream was, and it's based around the love story of a soldier overcoming war and coming home and to his love. And it's a love story of overcoming war and the end of war. And I think it's something that everybody really deep down inside wants. They want a home and they want to be loved.
And it's kind of a longing for that other person that you can truly connect with. When you look at the lyrics, it's kind of longing for that person who's your partner. It's just a love story about longing. It can be longing between two people who are not together physically, but they might be miles and miles away, but they have that connection and that desire to meet again and be together again. So it has that love story. It's almost like a love story in the midst of all this chaos, which is and destruction, which is the war. And we know that there are so many love stories happen during the biggest wars. I mean, World War II, World War I, like every you name it, there's always a love story. There's always love and hope in the middle of war and destruction and death.
Why don't we spin that dream thing around a bit? What about the dreams of Voice of Glass? What would make you happy as a band?
Music is our passion, and as that we would love for our music, our dream is to be able to, as many people as possible, to be able to hear our music, to be inspired by our music, be touched by it, maybe find hope, find peace, find faith. Even if it's just one listener at a time, that's our dream, is that our music can somehow find the right people at the right time to just inspire them. That's our dream.
Yes.
Is it through record sales? Is it through streaming? Is it through touring? Where do you make the biggest impact?
Well, we obviously are not doing that for money. We actually lose a lot of money when between recording and all these sessions in the studio and then promoting our music and all that. I mean, we're not making any music. We're not really making money of this music.
No, that's kind of the curse for every musician.
I think so.
Is you try to cut your losses to a degree.
Yes, and we do live in a city where everybody tries to make money with the music. That's why you have all these impersonators and people who play covers and stuff. But we are definitely against that current. We're making our music because, as David said already, we want to we want to bring something positive to this world. We want to inspire people. We want to help them go through whatever they're going through. We want to help them find peace and acceptance and love. But most of the time we're doing it on our own.
Well, yeah. I mean, with the way streaming is right now, I mean, you can have a song go, and some of our songs, have tens of thousands of people listen to a song all over the world, and we'll have people writing us from South America. We even had this kid from Norway that wrote a letter to us. So, nowadays, the way the world is, I mean, your music, online, you can reach all over the world. We've been able to do that, and also hopefully, we can play live and get more personal one-on-one encounters with people.
Well, Voice of Glass has been busy because you've just released your new EP, Epos. I had to look up the definition to find out that word means poems that have an epic theme. So that has left me wondering if Voice of Glass considers your releases to be more like poems versus simply being songs.
That's an interesting perspective, but yeah, it's because a lot of our songs do start out as poems that I wrote from the concepts, the ideas in the poems. It inspires some melody or a riff on the guitar, which then she is able to take and come up with vocal melodies with. So a lot of the songs, they do tell a story, and they are kind of poetry in essence.
Does this mean that the EP, that is the theme of it?
Yes, and especially when we were doing the EP, we were like, this was our first release in a while, and we were like, what do we really want to say, And so it was in a way conceptual about trying to really tell a story, like from the beginning, the creation of the world, to struggle and strife and fall and redemption, and then future hope. And it was a concept of like an epic story.
Every song is chosen to be there for a reason. I mean, we have songs that we recorded, other songs that we excluded because they just did not fit in that epic poem, so to speak. So yes, it is a very conceptual album, EP actually, and it is kind of like an epic story, as you said. And as David mentioned earlier, he writes poetry. And a lot of times he has a melody for that particular poem that he wrote, but sometimes I'll be like, I don't think that melody matches. I think we need to get this other melody. And, I kind of curate his lyrics around sometimes. And sometimes, of course, he comes in, he's like, this is the melody, that's it. I mean, this is the music part for this poem. And I'm like, okay, let's work with this. But for that particular EP, yes, like this was David's vision, and I totally went along with it. And the epic story David is talking about is the story of redemption. From the beginning, creation of the beginning of creation, the fall, the sin entering the world, basically the problem, the conflict, then the resolution, the redemption, and of course, the victory, I would say.
Quite a few of your songs, they sort of hint at Christian faith, like what's heard on the song The Ancient of Days.
Mm-hmm.
You are life, you are beginning, days renewed by your breath. On your mornings we fly, forever light, hope never ending. Now, with lyrics like that faith aspect might not be obvious to some. So is that intentional? You're not trying to preach to your listeners.
No, and we want our music to be approachable and relatable to everyone. We're not shy about our faith, but we do want our music to be able to reach people who might be intimidated or shy away from something that is preachy. So we do have those allusions to things. We have songs that are based on Bible verses or things from the Bible, because those have been ways to open up conversation with people. That's part of the mission behind Voice of Glass is making the messages, the themes of our faith relatable to anyone from any walk of life and from any place in life,
Because nowadays, the way our algorithms and things work, when you label something Christian, like Christian music, a lot of the algorithms and things, they suggest it only to Christian. And it is kind of hard to break through. And actually, I can go in and I can see there's this particular site that works with Spotify, and it kind of gives them our lyrics and all that. And you can see how a lot of our songs, they don't even say anything. They don't say Jesus or God or anything like that, but they are already labeled religious content. And it's shocking because you see it's like a red, like a question, like a warning, like a triangle, like warning, religious content. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Even AI can look at a song and say, I think that's a religious content. And what we have found out about it is that then Spotify takes that song and groups it with other Christian bands and suggests it to mostly Christian listeners. Now that creates a problem. We love for our music to be listened by Christian fans because we are Christians ourselves. But we also want our music to reach people who don't necessarily call themselves Christians, because how can you be a light in the darkness if you don't have the opportunity to shine in the darkness? So This is the thing. It's an uphill battle that we have this right now with the algorithms and how they prevent a lot of Christian artists from reaching people who are not necessarily Christian.
The Antidote, its tagline of the show is Christian music that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
So you're still comfortable with being on a show like this?
Of course.
Yes.
Yes.
Christians are included in everyone.
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
We've climbed over the fence. People can't stop us.
Yeah.
Right.
The Ancient of Days is another of the songs found on the new EP, Epos, from Voice of Glass. You know, the negative about my talk with David and Olya was that I wasn't able to include all of it during tonight's edition of The Antidote. But you can hear the entire conversation on the interview section of theantidoteradio.com. We still have more to hear from Voice of Glass. But first, let me tell you about next week's show. Without a doubt, Stephen Stanley has the most powerful voice in music. And that's not just the Christian scene. He tops out everybody in the mainstream too. This guy is a true creative, so tune in and find out all about him and his music next week. Here comes the final portion of my talk with Voice of Glass and their song, The World is Broken. I'll see you next time. The World is Broken is the very first song on the Epos EP. I don't think many people would disagree with that song title, because the world really is a messed up place. But what was it in particular that inspired you to record that song?
For this song particularly, it was inspired by when we were watching a movie on child trafficking, and I mean, it was a very heavy movie. And while we were watching it, I wrote down on a piece of paper the line, "This world is broken. Can you see it bleed through its cracks, the abusers feed?" And then from that line afterwards, I took that and I wrote the rest of the lyrics and started playing the guitar. And she came up with the melody for it pretty quickly. And that became This World is Broken.
That's serious stuff.
Yeah.
Then do you think that the songs from Voice of Glass could actually change the world and make it a better place?
We would hope so, but I feel like that any one person changing the world is kind of a tall task, and that's not something that we really aspire. You know, there's a parable that talks about the shepherd leaving the 99 to go to reach that one person, and sometimes, when to change the world, you just got to look smaller and look at the person next door. Like, who's your neighbor? Who's that person, that one person that you can have an impact on their life, and then one person at a time.
That's a great thought, and you're absolutely right. One step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And then one person at a time, then you can spread some light in the world. Yes. And make a difference.
Maybe we can't change the world, but we can be lights in that darkness, because the world is dark, a very dark place, but we can be the light. And, kind of like beacons, people can see, in the dark, when you see a beacon of light, you can see, I can go there. I'm safe now. I know the way. So in a way, if we can point to the way, which is literally one of the names for Jesus, that he is the way, right? If we can point to the way, in a way, we are changing the world.
So the new EP is out now. Are you guys going to tour this? Are you going to go out and play some shows with the music?
We definitely are intending to, or in the process of putting together a live lineup. We've already begun rehearsing with some musicians and are looking into booking shows at least over the summer for now. Most likely locally and probably a little bit regionally, if possibly like the California, Arizona are close, but that's what is in the works at the moment.
Anywhere that you could actually drive to without having to spend too much money on gas.
Too much money on gas, and yeah.
It's not only about that. Both of us work. He has a full-time job. And so it's hard to kind of take off and live for several days. It's not even so much about the gas. I mean, obviously that is the problem. I mean, gas is not cheap, but like just taking off from work and, leaving your animals home and all that, it's just logistically, it's a little bit hard. So that's why we want to focus a little bit more on local shows. And then if we get the opportunity to play in something bigger, maybe festivals or anything like that out of town, we will make arrangements, but that's not like our main goal right now.
You see, though, the problem is that life crushes creativity.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, creativity gets crushed by mortgages and things like that.
Yeah, but when you have a full-time job, that's what pays for the recordings in the studio. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's when you can really go deep and really record the music the way you like it.
Olga and David Meek of Voice of Glass have been here on The Antidote. I got to thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you. Yeah, we really enjoyed this.
Yes.